Well, here we are. We are just a couple of weeks out from the new year of 2023, which is, by the way, when a lot of shows are going to begin to really reveal themselves to the audience, like Ahsoka, Mandalorian Season 3, and even Bad Batch 2. We have, of course, Bob Iger really trying to establish this new Star Wars roadmap that's going to really blossom and be announced more so at Celebration and D23 of next year. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing that we do know about when it comes to, of course, this new roadmap is that now Bob Iger wants to focus on really kind of focusing more so on movies instead of shows, primarily. Not that he wants to get rid of shows altogether, but he does want to bounce back to focusing on movies again, and we already talked about that many times and what he's going through right now. But that really brings us to the board of directors, right? The Disney board members that really have been having issues with Bob Iger as of late over something very specific with Kathleen Kennedy. We're going to be tapping into all of this. And one thing that we already know is that Bob Iger has been creating a little bit of a difficult situation over at Disney with, of course, the board. Now, given that the board would have rather to have somebody new take over instead of course, Bob Iger coming back, Iger was their only choice to get somebody immediate to bring him in to kind of fix everything with the Disney parks, to kind of fix everything with Star Wars and Marvel, etc. And they believe that Chapek just had to call it quits. They had to get rid of him as fast as they could. Now, that is, of course, in relation to what is happening here with Bob Iger. Now, Bob Iger has already been getting into a lot of trouble with the board. However, with many new Star Wars shows actively in the works by Favreau and Filoni, Disney CEO Bob Iger has been trying to make some changes behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm. Now, it's noted that most recently Bob Iger got in more trouble with the Disney board members after he tried to make a concrete plan with firing Kathleen Kennedy in a certain way, that he plans to cover it up, that she would only be stepping down instead of to the public letting it be known that she would actually be getting fired in reality. The truth behind all of this is that Iger has had discussions with the board that he fears that letting it go public when Kennedy gets fired, as planned for August of 2023, that the fans are going to be overwhelmed with an ego. Alright, that's what Iger believes. Moving on. Iger called the fans too delicate to handle the news that Kennedy would be fired, and that it would only create months of negative press for Disney and not good for business. So let me just stop right here for a second. Now, obviously, Bob Iger's afraid of letting it be publicly known that Kathleen Kennedy's departure would be a firing and not her voluntarily stepping down. He fears that, and he doesn't want that to happen. The board is having a big issue with this, of course, particularly because they don't want somebody that is very deceiving as the CEO of Disney, of all companies, right? A huge corporation. And when you look at it that way, that's, of course, when you realize that, you know, Bob Iger is fully aware that Kathleen Kennedy is not doing her job properly, and that he is fully aware how much of an impact that she has had on the fans. That just right then and there confirms it, right? And so that brings us to, of course, where does this lead? You know, where does this lead Bob Iger? Well, the board is giving him an ultimatum to leave it be, to let it be known publicly that she is indeed getting fired, and when she does, that she did get fired. And if they have him go with that plan, he's going to be fine. But if he's going to go ahead and cover it up and make it like she stepped down voluntarily, they are going to try to get somebody new to take over Bob Iger, whoever they can get, in order to have somebody more honest and trustworthy. And so that's, of course, where everything lies here. We already know that Bob Iger plans to only stay at Disney for 2 to 4 years maximum, because, let's face it, he always knew he was probably going to be coming back. Bob Chapek was the fall guy. He was the guy to take all of the weight and all of the potential failures of Disney parks, instead of Bob Iger taking the fall. And once that was all said and done, they grabbed Chapek out and they got Bob Iger back in. Now, the thing about this too is that Kathleen Kennedy is fully aware of all this drama that's happening over at Disney between Iger and the board, and etc. Now, this is why Iger plans on covering it all up, that Kennedy will be stepping down instead of being publicly announced of her firing. This is something that the board is ashamed of hearing from Iger, and that they have been having very intense conversations with him, and are giving him an ultimatum that he must have it publicly announced that she was fired, or they are going to have to find somebody else to actually lead Disney, as they don't want a liar running Disney, and especially to start, of course, the Star Wars community once more. This ultimatum is still being discussed with Iger, however. Iger is trying to stand his ground and attempting to convince the board to approve his plan for all of this with Kathleen Kennedy. So once again, you can see that Iger is a very convincing person when it comes to, of course, business, when it comes to strategies, and he's trying to lay that upon the board of directors, right? The board. And it just goes to show you that he's really trying to convince them here that this is the only way to handle the situation, because he thinks that the fans are way too delicate to handle the news that Kathleen Kennedy got fired. I don't know why he thinks this way, but that is how he thinks, and he believes that it's only going to create months worth of negative headlines. And you know what? Maybe that's the truth, Maybe the media really is going to harp on that, but you know what? At the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of it once she is let go. Honestly, it's not all that bad at the end of the day. You're going to have maybe a month, maybe two max, of a lot of negative press and headlines, and then you're going to have good things coming out of it once you get somebody else running Lucasfilm. Like I said, they're trying to get Ron Howard on board as the new president. If that fails, they want David Heyman, the guy who ran the Harry Potter films, alright? So, moving on to the next big thing here, Iger is having a lot of trouble with this. He's having a lot of difficult situations with the board. They are not happy with him. They're giving him a lot of ultimatums about his choices, about how he wants to cover everything up with Kathleen Kennedy, and it's just not going to work. And you could see how desperate he is. He's trying to convince the board that this is the only way to establish this, to make it like she's just stepping down voluntarily and walking off into the sunset, saying, I'm done as president, right? And you know what? Maybe it's good business on his end, but I don't think it's good business for the fans, because then the fans are going to know immediately what's really going on. They're not going to view Disney as an honest company, and it's just not going to be good business in the long run for the hardcore Star Wars fans and for the hardcore Marvel fans and everybody that follows Disney, religiously. So overall, like I say, guys, there's a lot of things coming out of this. We will be covering more and more about this as it moves along. The board is on our side. Let's just be very well aware about that. The board is on our side. Bob Iger is half and half from what it seems. He is allowing John and Dave to do what they want to do, but business-wise, it doesn't seem to be catering to us. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.